Hey, welcome back to another Netcast. I'm Rich Lopez, Quantrix Authority. Sincerely appreciate you joining me today for episode number 193, Data Push Expression using Select Function in Pre-Push SQL Statement. This is totally awesome. Came across it probably a while back, but I don't believe I've ever done a podcast on it, and I wanted to share it with you because when I was trying to repeat the process this week, ran into a little bit of a snafu that I'd forgotten about, but generally pretty straightforward, as is most things, or as are most things in Quantrix. Again, if you were to watch episode number 192, you would know that I have this very complex model where I'm pushing, some data out to a database. That's ultimately the result of my model. And what I'm doing is I'm populating it with certain fiscal months and fiscal years based off of some input dates that I place here. Well, what happens is I may update this data, and I don't want to. I may update this data, and I want it to refresh out on the database when I perform the data push. And since this doesn't contain historical information for previous months, but the database does, I don't want to blow out the table or truncate the table every time I'm updating a push. I only want it to delete the month. I only want it to refresh the data for the month and the year that I'm pushing. So in this case, it's really only the period that is between 430 and 527, which is really period 5 of 2017. Okay, so how do I get this to work in Quantrix? Well, let's step through the wizard a little bit, and it's a little more, I think, self-explanatory. So I'd go here to Data Push, and I would edit my Data Push. And if you were to watch episode number 192, I show how I use this select function to identify the year and month to populate what time period the data is for that I'm pushing. But as I go on here, I'm just going to step through the wizard. I make my assignments. There's this update options where it says overwrite all data in transportation purchases underscore LH. That's the table that I'm populating with this data. And I don't want to overwrite it because, again, this model right now is only for a certain period. It's not for, since the beginning of time. It's only one period at a time. That's the way I built the model. So I don't want to overwrite all my data because I want to maintain that history. So I'm going to uncheck this. But I don't also want to be appending every time because, well, what if, 517, what if I end up having to do like 5 updates because maybe I realize things weren't quite the way I wanted them to be, or there was some late data that came in that I didn't have in part of my update. I wouldn't want to see, a bunch of versions, if you will, of, the current month's data. So what I want to do is I want to make sure this is unchecked. And then as I step through this just a little bit more, I come to this Pre-Push SQL where I can say, well, go ahead and delete everything from this table where my month is in this selection and where my year is in this selection. Now I could easily just have this be an equals to here, but I used in for whatever reason. And what I've done is I've then put in curly braces. If I zoom in on that, you'll see that I've then put in curly braces, and remember, curly braces are an expression, denote an expression in SQL, but I've gone ahead and I've wrapped in curly braces this entire select function so that where I'm going out and I'm selecting the date dim, fin month, date dim, financial date, date selection, fiscal start date value, much like I did in episode 192. So what I'm doing is I'm saying go out and find the month in this table that is associated with the date that I'm putting in here by looking up or having the lookup range be right here, this financial date. And I'm doing the same thing for year. And the thing that I got hung up on this week when I was trying to do it that I had forgotten to do is that you do need to include these curly braces, and that tells Quantrix that this is an expression that you're using, so it needs to evaluate it before it evaluates the rest of the SQL statement. Anyway, I thought that was very powerful, great skill to know how to use an expression in some pre-push SQL to create some data pushes and really allow you to append to your tables and overwrite maybe the current set of data that you've already pushed. Anyway, I hope you find that useful. If you have any questions about Quantrix, I do hope that you'll reach out to me at quantrixauthority@gmail.com. I absolutely love Quantrix, and I want to make you a Quantrix master. So please join me again for another episode of Quantrix Authority with Rich Lopez.